They didn't yell, didn't wave guns, didn't make threats. They just pressed a blade right to her throat. Cold steel angled sharp against her skin. No shouting, no chaos, just one quiet line. Move, and it's your last breath. And she didn't move, didn't even flinch, which was their mistake. Because in that exact moment, what they didn't know was that the woman they'd chosen to threaten was an active Navy SEAL. Still cleared, still trained, still lethal. And when that blade shifted, when the tension rose just 1 inch too far, she didn't panic. She moved. One motion, one reversal, 3 men down, no warning. But that moment was still 90 minutes away. Right now, at 10:15 on a Tuesday morning in December, Riley Ashford stood in her apartment staring at a photograph. Her father, Gunnery Sergeant William Ashford, United States Marine Corps. The photo showed him in dress blues, younger, healthier, before the cancer that the Veterans Affairs Administration denied for 15 years finally killed him 6 months ago. The apartment was small, minimalist, walls mostly bare except for that one photo and a framed Navy SEAL trident. No decorations, no personality, the kind of place someone lived when they were never really home, when home was just a place to sleep between deployments. On the kitchen counter sat a canvas bank bag. Inside, $47,000 in cash. Her entire inheritance. Everything her father had left after medical bills consumed his life savings, after the VA finally admitted his cancer was service-connected, but only after he was already dead, after lawyers and funeral costs and all the small indignities that came with dying while the system you'd served pretended you didn't matter. Riley picked up the bag. It was heavier than it looked. Not just the weight of money, the weight of choices. She could keep it, start over. Maybe leave the Navy, go to college, become someone who didn't carry a knife everywhere and couldn't sleep without checking exits. Someone normal. But her father hadn't raised someone normal. He'd raised someone who finished what they started. And 6 months ago, dying in a hospice bed that smelled like disinfectant and defeat, he'd made her promise something. The USB drive, he'd whispered, his voice barely audible over the oxygen machine. In the safe. Password is my service number, 2738591. Evidence, cases, cover-ups. Each word had cost him. Good soldiers, betrayed, like me, help them, promise me. She'd promised. Riley had found the drive, encrypted, professional. Her father had worked at Pentagon Archives for 25 years after leaving the Marines. Records Division, access to classified documents going back decades. And somewhere along the way, he'd started making copies, not for profit, not for blackmail, for justice, for the men and women who'd been destroyed by the system that was supposed to protect them. The drive contained 15 cases, 15 instances of cover-ups, falsified reports, soldiers blamed for command failures, careers destroyed, lives ruined, all documented, all authenticated, all hidden by the same Pentagon that pinned medals on people while quietly bearing the evidence of its own corruption. She'd verified 3 cases so far, cross-referenced with news reports, with court-martials, with soldiers who'd been dishonorably discharged for crimes they hadn't committed. Her father had been meticulous. Timestamps, audio recordings, original documents alongside the falsified versions. Everything an investigative journalist or congressional committee would need to blow the doors off the military's dirty secrets. But Riley wasn't a journalist. She was a SEAL. And SEALs didn't leak classified information, even when that information exposed criminal activity. So for 6 months, she'd carried this burden, this knowledge, this weight, until yesterday when she'd made a decision. The Ashford Scholarship Fund. She'd set it up online, a nonprofit to help children of veterans afford college. The initial donation, $47,000. Everything her father left her. She'd make the deposit today at First Pacific Bank, then send the USB drive to a contact she'd developed over the past month. A journalist with the Washington Post who specialized in military accountability. Someone who'd know what to do with the evidence. Someone who'd make sure her father's final mission succeeded. It was 10:30 a.m. The bank opened at 10. She needed to move. Riley dressed simply, jeans, dark blue hoodie, practical boots. She wasn't on duty, wasn't on assignment, just a civilian running an errand. Except SEALs were never really civilians. The training didn't turn off. The awareness didn't fade. Even now, walking to her truck, she automatically scanned the parking lot, noted the positions of other vehicles, identified the fastest exit routes, calculated the distance to cover if something went wrong. Nothing went wrong. Portland was quiet. Traffic was light. She arrived at First Pacific Bank at 10:45, found parking on the street, and grabbed the canvas bag. The bank was exactly what she expected. Mid-sized regional branch, beige tile floors that had seen too many winters, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead, a wall-mounted TV playing muted news in the corner, two tellers behind glass, a vault door visible in the back, slightly ajar. A manager with salt and pepper hair at a desk reviewing loan papers. A security guard near the entrance, elderly, probably retired law enforcement, supplementing his pension. 6 customers. An older man with a cane sitting near the deposit slips. A young couple whispering about mortgage rates. A woman filling out forms. A teller named Diane, according to her name tag. Another customer at the ATM. And 3 men. Riley noticed them immediately because they didn't fit. They stood too still, observed too carefully, moved with a particular economy of motion that came from military training. She'd seen it 1,000 times. The way they positioned themselves to maintain sight lines to all exits. The way their eyes tracked movement. The way they communicated with minimal gestures. One wore a Navy jacket, older, 45, maybe 50. Command presence, leader. The second, younger, 30s, stayed near the front door. The third hovered near the teller stations, nervous energy poorly concealed. Riley's instincts screamed warning, but she was off duty. Paranoid, maybe. These could just be veterans. Lots of vets in Portland. Lots of people with military bearing who were just normal citizens now. She took her place in line. 5th. The couple was ahead of her, still debating the interest rates in hushed tones that somehow carried across the lobby. Riley Ashford? The voice came from behind. Deep, familiar. She turned. Master Chief Declan Iron Kessler. 67 years old, retired SEAL Team 6. Legend. The man who trained her at BUD/S 3 years ago when everyone else had written her off as a diversity quota who'd wash out by Hell Week. Master Chief. She couldn't help the smile. Kessler had that effect. Didn't expect to see you here. Pension day. He gestured to the teller window. Still don't trust direct deposit. Old habits. His eyes tracked to the canvas bag in her hand. That's a lot of cash to be carrying around. Inheritance. From my father. Kessler's expression softened. He'd known her father. Not well, but enough. Military community in Portland was tight. William was a good man. I'm sorry. Thank you, Master Chief. He'd be proud of you, what you've accomplished. First woman to complete BUD/S without recycling a single phase. That's legend status. Learn from the best. She meant it. Kessler had been the only instructor who'd treated her like a candidate instead of a social experiment. He'd pushed her harder than anyone, expected more, accepted no excuses. And when she'd succeeded, he'd been the first to shake her hand and call her a SEAL. His eyes drifted to the 3 men, narrowed slightly. You noticed them? So she wasn't paranoid. Military bearing, coordinated positioning, either they're very careful customers or they're casing the place. Kessler's voice dropped. I've been watching them for 10 minutes. They're waiting for something. Shift change, maybe. Vault access, something. Riley's pulse kicked up. Not panic, training. Her body preparing for action even as her mind stayed calm. Should we call it in? And say what? 3 veterans are standing in a bank? Could be nothing. But his tone said he didn't believe that. I've got an appointment at the VA in 20 minutes. Can't miss it or they'll reschedule for 3 months from now. You going to be okay? Always am, Master Chief. He studied her face, saw something there that satisfied him. You're never really off duty. Remember that. Trust your training. If something happens, you'll know what to do. Yes, Master Chief. He clasped her shoulder briefly, a gesture of respect, pride. Then he was gone, disappearing through the bank's front doors into the December sunshine. Riley was alone again. Well, not alone. 6 civilians and 3 potential threats. She moved forward in line. The couple finished their mortgage discussion and left. The woman with forms moved to a desk with the manager. The older man with the cane stood slowly, joints creaking, and took his place in line, ahead of Riley. The 3 military men hadn't moved. Still watching. Still waiting. Riley's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Washington Post. Receive your inquiry. Very interested in meeting. Can you do Thursday? The journalist. The one she'd contacted about her father's evidence. Riley typed back, Thursday works. I'll have materials ready for review. Materials are classified? Materials are evidence of criminal activity. Classification doesn't protect crimes. Looking forward to meeting you, Miss Ashford. She pocketed the phone. 2 more days. Then the evidence would be out. The truth would be public. Her father's mission would be complete. The teller called, Next, and the old man shuffled forward, cane tapping against tile. Riley was now second in line. Behind her, someone new entered the bank. A young man, college age. He looked nervous, kept checking his phone. Riley filed it away. Probably just a student depositing his first paycheck or something equally mundane. 11:15 a.m. The vault door swung fully open. Diane, the teller, emerged carrying a locked cash box. She set it on her station, opened it with a key, and began counting bills. Standard operating procedure for replenishing the teller drawers. The man in the navy jacket straightened slightly, made eye contact with his companions. A look passed between them. Not words, just acknowledgement. Riley felt the temperature in the room change. The man at the door moved first, casual, just adjusting his position, except now he was blocking the exit. The third man, the nervous one, had drifted closer to the teller stations, and the leader in the navy jacket reached under his coat. Time seemed to slow. Riley's training kicked in. Identify the threat, assess resources, calculate options. She was unarmed, hadn't carried her service weapon off duty. Behind her, 5 civilians who would panic the moment weapons appeared. In front of her, 3 trained men about to commit what was either robbery or something worse. The leader pulled a tactical shotgun from a sling under his coat. Not aimed, just visible. Present. A statement. Nobody move, he said, voice calm. Professional. Not angry or excited. This was business. Nobody panic. Nobody gets hurt. We're not here for you. We're here for the bank. The woman at the manager's desk screamed, short, cut off as she clapped her hand over her mouth. The old man with the cane froze. Diane, the teller, went pale. The student near the back pulled out his phone until the nervous man grabbed it from his hand. Phones, the leader said. All of them. On the floor. Now. The man at the door had pulled his weapon too. Glock 19, standard law enforcement sidearm. He moved among the customers, collecting phones, dropping them into a canvas bag. When he reached Riley, she didn't resist. Dropped her phone smoothly, made eye contact. Let him see she wasn't a threat. He moved on. The leader addressed the room. My name is Colonel Garrett Vance, United States Army, Delta Force, retired. These are my men. We're not criminals. We're soldiers who were betrayed by our own command. We're here to take back what was stolen from us. Riley's mind raced. Vance. Garrett Vance. She knew that name. From where? Then it clicked. Her father's USB drive. Case number 7. Operation Inherent Resolve. Syria. March 2018. Colonel Garrett Vance, Delta Force commander, accused of ordering illegal airstrikes on civilian targets. Court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged. Except the evidence her father had collected told a different story. Audio recordings of General Raymond Hayworth ordering the strikes. Original after-action reports that showed Vance had objected, had recommended against the mission, had been overruled. And then, when 23 civilians died, Hayworth had blamed Vance, falsified the reports, and destroyed the career of a decorated soldier to cover his own mistake. Garrett Vance wasn't a war criminal. He was a scapegoat. And now he was robbing a bank. This branch, Vance continued, serves as a transfer point for CIA black budget funds, untraceable money used for operations that Congress doesn't authorize and the public doesn't know about. There's $2.3 million in that vault right now, money that was stolen from the American people and used to fund the kind of operations that destroy lives and careers and families. We're taking it. We're going to use it to hire lawyers, to buy back evidence that the Pentagon buried, to clear our names. It was a good speech, persuasive even. Several of the hostages were nodding. The old man with the cane said quietly, "Good luck to you, son." But Riley knew better. This wasn't going to end well. The police were already coming. Someone had triggered a silent alarm. This bank had cameras. Federal agencies would be involved within minutes. Even if Vance got his money, he'd never make it out of Portland. Unless he had leverage. Vance's eyes swept the room, assessing, calculating, looking for the person who'd be most useful as a hostage. His gaze passed over the screaming woman, too unstable. The old man, too frail. The student, too young, too much potential for public backlash. His eyes landed on Riley, standing still, calm, not crying, not begging, just breathing steady and waiting. Perfect. "You," Vance said, pointing at her. "Center of the room, now." Riley didn't argue, didn't protest, just walked to where he indicated. The exact center of the lobby, under a circular skylight that cast a column of winter sun across the marble tile. The place where everyone could see her. Where she'd be maximally visible to police outside. Where she'd be the perfect bargaining chip. The nervous man, the one who'd taken the phones, approached from behind. "Hands where I can see them," he said. His voice cracked slightly. PTSD indicators. Hypervigilance. This one was the wild card, the unpredictable element. Riley raised her hands, slow, non-threatening. Vance approached from the front. From under his jacket, he pulled a knife. K-bar, 7 inches, serrated back edge, standard issue military combat knife. He held it professionally, not like a street thug, like a soldier who'd been trained in blade work. He placed it against her throat. Not cutting, just presence. Cold steel pressed against the soft skin just above her carotid artery. One wrong move, one moment of panic, one slip, and she'd bleed out in 90 seconds. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. Riley considered lying, decided against it. "Riley Ashford." "You're very calm, Riley Ashford. Panicking won't help." "No, it won't." He adjusted the blade slightly. The angle changed, more optimal for a killing strike. He knew what he was doing. "You're going to help us. You're going to stand right here, very still, very quiet, while my men collect what we came for. And if the police do anything stupid, if they try to breach, if they make any moves that endanger this operation, you're going to be the reason they don't. Understand?" "I understand." "Good." He looked at the third man, the one guarding the door. "Boone, lock it down." "Boone." Riley filed the name away. Boone Marcus. Case number 11 on her father's drive. Sergeant Boone Marcus, Army Ranger, medically discharged after injuries sustained in the same Syria operation. The VA had denied his disability claim, classified his injuries as non-combat related, even though they'd occurred during a firefight. He'd lost his home, his family, everything. These men weren't criminals, they were casualties, broken by the same system Riley's father had spent his last years documenting. That didn't make this okay, but it made it understandable. Boone locked the front door, pulled a cell jammer from his pocket, and activated it. The bank's windows showed the outside world continuing as normal. People walking by, cars passing. Nobody knew yet, but they would, soon. The third man, the nervous one, moved toward the vault with Diane the teller. "Open it," he ordered. "All of it, every secured compartment." "I don't have access to—" "Open it or I'll open your throat." Diane's hands shook as she pulled keys from her pocket. Riley watched the man carefully. Younger than the others, maybe 30. Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm. Scout sniper, the precision branch. And yet his hands trembled. His breathing was irregular. Classic signs of someone fighting PTSD triggers. Shane Wolf. Case number 14. Corporal Shane Wolf, Marine Scout sniper, administratively separated after a mental health evaluation. His brother had died in his arms during the Syria operation, bled out because the medical evacuation had been delayed. Shane had blamed himself. The Corps had blamed Shane's mental instability. Neither had addressed the real problem. The operation had been a disaster from the start, and soldiers had died because of command failures. All three of these men had been destroyed by the same corrupt general whose voice was recorded on her father's USB drive. Riley stood perfectly still. The blade against her throat was steady. Vance's breathing was controlled. He wasn't panicking, wasn't desperate, just determined. A soldier executing a mission with the same discipline he'd used for 20-plus years. Outside, the first police car pulled up, silent, no lights. Professionals who knew not to escalate a hostage situation. Inside, time stretched. Seconds felt like minutes. Riley's mind cataloged everything. Distance to exits, position of hostages, behavioral patterns of the three men, the weight distribution of Vance's stance, the angle of the blade, the micro expressions that told her when someone was about to crack. She was a hostage, but she was also the most dangerous person in the room. And in approximately 60 minutes, Vance was going to figure that out the hard way. The first drops of sweat appeared on Vance's temple at 11:27 a.m. Not from fear, from realization. The vault they'd planned for 3 years to hit, the target that justified risking everything, contained exactly $180,000. Not the $2.3 million their intelligence had promised. Not even close. Boone emerged from the vault first, his face pale, shotgun lowered. He didn't need to say anything. The way his shoulders dropped told the entire story. Shane followed, gripping a single canvas deposit bag, his knuckles white against the fabric. The bag sagged. Light, wrong. Vance stood frozen near the teller stations, watching his entire operation collapse in real time. 3 years of planning, 6 months of surveillance, weeks of studying shift patterns, security protocols, vault schedules, all of it predicated on intelligence that was either outdated or deliberately wrong. He felt the weight of that failure settle across his shoulders like a wet coat. "It's not here," Boone said quietly, his voice barely carrying across the lobby. "The main vault has standard operating cash. The secure compartments we were told about? Empty. All of them." Shane threw the deposit bag against the wall. Bills scattered, fluttering down like dead leaves. 3 years, his voice cracked. 3 goddamn years for this? Riley stood perfectly still in the center of the room, Vance's K-bar blade still resting against her throat. She'd counted 16 bills in the air before they hit the ground. Hundreds mostly, a few 50s, maybe $8,000 total. Less than the inheritance money in her own bag, currently sitting on the floor 15 feet away where Vance had ordered her to drop it during the initial takeover. She didn't move, didn't speak, just breathed, slow, controlled, the way she'd been trained. Vance pressed the blade slightly closer. Not cutting, just presence. A reminder that he still held leverage, even if his plan had disintegrated. "How long ago?" he asked Boone, his voice tight. "Can't tell. Could be 2 days. Could be 2 weeks. The logs are gone." "Someone knew," Shane said, pacing now, his Glock still in hand, but waving erratically. "Someone tipped them off. They moved it. They knew we were coming." "Or the intel was bad from the start," Boone countered. He set the shotgun down on a desk, not surrendering it, but needing both hands to rub his face. "Christ, what do we do now?" Outside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the front of the bank, Riley could see the police perimeter expanding. 2 patrol cars had become 4. 4 had become 6. A black SUV with government plates pulled up, disgorging men in tactical gear who moved with the particular efficiency of federal operators. FBI, probably. Maybe ATF. The professionals were arriving, which meant the window for de-escalation was closing. She needed to act, but not yet. Not while Shane was spiraling and Vance was making panicked calculations. Panic led to mistakes. Mistakes led to violence. She'd seen it in Kandahar when a checkpoint guard got nervous. Seen it in Mogadishu when a negotiation broke down. Panic was gasoline, and this room was full of open flames. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Words he'd said 100 times during her childhood, during her teenage years, during that last conversation before he got too sick to speak clearly. "Patience is a weapon, Riley. The strongest weapon you'll ever carry. Because everyone else will rush. Everyone else will panic. And when they do, you'll be ready." She was ready now. She just needed them to give her an opening. Vance pulled his radio from his belt with his free hand, the one not holding the knife. "Marcus to external surveillance. Marcus to external surveillance." Static. Then a voice crackling. "External here. What's your status?" "The package isn't here." "Repeat, the package is not here." Long pause. "Say again?" "The vault is empty. Someone moved it. We have 180,000, not the target amount." Another pause, longer this time. Riley couldn't hear the response clearly, but she saw Vance's jaw tighten, saw the way his eyes closed for just a moment. Bad news from whoever was feeding them information from outside. "Understood," Vance said into the radio. "Maintain position. We're reassessing." He clipped the radio back to his belt and looked at Riley for the first time since dragging her to the center of the room. Really looked at her. Not as a hostage or a prop or a tactical element, but as a person. His eyes tracked her face, her posture, the complete absence of fear in her expression. "You're very calm," he said quietly, meant only for her. Riley didn't respond. Silence was also a weapon. Most people would be crying by now, begging, bargaining. The blade shifted slightly, the flat of it cooling against her skin. "But you're just standing there, like you're waiting for something." Still nothing from Riley, just those steady breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The meditation technique they taught at BUD/S, the one that kept your heart rate below 80, even when your body was screaming at you to run. Vance leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Who are you?" Now, this was the opening. Riley spoke for the first time since the takeover began. Her voice came out steady, clear, and absolutely certain. "Colonel Garrett Vance, Delta Force, Operation Inherent Resolve, Syria, March 2018. You were framed." Vance jerked backward like she'd struck him. The knife wavered, point dipping away from her throat for just a fraction of a second before training reasserted itself, and he brought it back. But the damage was done. She'd rattled him. Badly. "How do you know that name?" His voice was sharp now, all the earlier calm gone. "How do you know about Syria?" Riley turned her head slowly, just enough to make eye contact without threatening him. I read the classified after-action report. Your team didn't fire on those civilians. General Hayworth ordered the airstrike, then blamed your ground team to cover the collateral damage. Across the room, Boone straightened up. Shane stopped pacing. They were both staring now, trying to process what they were hearing. Vance's grip on the knife tightened, but his hand was shaking now. Who the hell are you? Petty Officer Riley Ashford, SEAL Team 3. She said it simply, matter-of-factly, the way she might tell someone her shoe size. And Colonel, I'm not your enemy. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire bank seemed to hold its breath. Even the hostages, pressed against the far wall, went silent. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel the shift in the room, the sudden change in power dynamics. Shane broke the silence first, his voice rising to a near shout. She's SEAL? She's military? Boone grabbed his arm. Keep it down. Keep it down? Are you insane? She's been standing there this whole time, waiting to kill us. If I wanted you dead, Riley said calmly, not taking her eyes off Vance, you'd already be dead. All three of you. I've had 12 separate opportunities in the last 16 minutes. Vance's face had gone pale. He was doing the math now, running back through every moment since they'd entered the bank, seeing it all from a different angle. The way she'd stood so still. The way she'd moved to the center of the room without resistance. The way she'd been tracking everything, everyone, with those steady, calculating eyes. Why haven't you made a move? He asked. Because I don't want bloodshed. Riley's voice softened slightly. You're not a criminal, Colonel. You're a soldier who got betrayed, just like my father. That caught him. Your father? Gunnery Sergeant William Ashford, Gulf War 1991, 3rd Marine Division. Riley's throat tightened, but she kept her voice level. He spent 25 years after that war fighting the VA for medical coverage. Burn pit exposure, chemical inhalation. They denied him for 15 years, said his cancer wasn't service-connected. By the time they finally admitted the truth, it was too late. He died 6 months ago. Vance's hand lowered slightly. The knife was still there, still dangerous, but the angle had changed. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be better than the system that failed him. Be better than the system that failed you. Riley shifted her weight, just slightly. A movement so small most people wouldn't notice. But Vance noticed. His eyes tracked it. You're not a murderer. You're not a thief. You're a man trying to reclaim his honor. I understand that. But this isn't the way. Shane stepped forward, his Glock raised now, pointed directly at Riley's head. This is bullshit. She's playing you. She's stalling so her people can breach. Lower your weapon, Corporal, Vance said, his tone carrying command authority even in this insane situation. No, she's dangerous. You said it yourself, she's had opportunities. She's waiting for something, for backup, for us to let our guard down. I said lower your weapon. Shane's hand trembled. His finger rested on the trigger guard, not the trigger itself, but close, too close. Riley could see the sweat on his forehead, see the rapid flutter of his pulse in his neck. PTSD symptoms, hypervigilance, paranoia. He was spiraling. Across the room, one of the hostages, the older man with gray hair and weathered hands, slowly stood up. Everett Walsh, though Riley didn't know his name yet. He moved carefully, deliberately, the way someone moves around a spooked horse. Son, Everett said, his voice carrying the particular authority that only came from age and experience. Lower that weapon. Shane spun toward him, gun tracking. Sit down, old man. I'm not sitting down. Everett took another step forward, hands visible and empty at his sides. And I'm not a threat. I'm a veteran, same as you, same as these men, same as her. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Everett's voice stayed calm, grandfatherly almost, despite the gun pointed at his chest. I know you're scared. I know you're angry. I know you think the world betrayed you. Because I felt all those things too. Desert Storm, 1991, 3rd Armored Division. Lost half my company because someone in command made a bad call and blamed us for it. Shane's gun wavered slightly. That's not the same. Isn't it? Seems pretty damn similar to me. Good men doing their jobs, following orders, and then getting thrown under the bus when things go wrong. Everett took another step closer. The difference is, I didn't let it make me into someone I'm not. I didn't let my anger turn me into the enemy. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You want justice. You want someone to acknowledge what happened to you was wrong. You want your life back. Everett was close enough now that Shane could reach out and touch him. But this girl right here, she's trying to help you, and you're pointing a gun at her like she's the problem. The tension in the room was unbearable now, a physical pressure that made it hard to breathe. Riley's muscles were coiled, ready. If Shane's finger moved to that trigger, if his stance shifted even slightly toward commitment, she would move. She'd have to. Everett was 3 feet from a loaded weapon pointed at center mass. He'd be dead before he hit the ground. But Riley wouldn't let that happen. Vance made the decision before she had to. He stepped between Shane and Everett, using his body as a barrier. "Stand down, Corporal. That's an order." "We're not in the military anymore. You can't give me orders." "I can, and I am. Stand down." For a moment, Riley thought Shane was going to shoot anyway, thought the PTSD and the fear and the rage would override whatever discipline he had left. But then, slowly, incrementally, the gun lowered. Not holstered, not safe, but lowered. Shane's voice came out broken. "They took everything from us, everything, and now we don't even have this." Vance put a hand on Shane's shoulder. "I know, but we're not going to make it worse." Boone had been silent through all of this, watching, processing. Now he spoke up, his voice quiet but clear. "What do we do, Colonel? The police aren't going to wait forever. FBI's already here. Once they establish their perimeter and get their negotiators in place, we're done. And $180,000 isn't enough to matter. Not for lawyers, not for anything." Vance looked at Riley. "You said you understand. You said you know what it's like to be told you don't belong. Prove it. Help us." Riley held his gaze for a long moment. This was the fulcrum, the decision point. She could disarm them now, end this with violence. Quick, efficient, permanent. Or she could do what they never trained her for at Bud/S. She could choose the harder path. "I'll help you," she said, "but not the way you think." Vance's expression was wary. "What do you mean?" "I mean you surrender, with honor. You face trial, and I help you get the evidence that proves you were framed." Shane laughed, a bitter sound. "Evidence? The Pentagon destroyed everything. We've been trying for years." "The Pentagon destroyed what they found," Riley corrected. "They didn't destroy what they didn't know existed." Now she had everyone's attention. Vance, Boone, Shane, even Everett, still standing close, looked intrigued. Riley glanced at her bag on the floor. "The $47,000 I brought today? That's my inheritance. From my father. Gunnery Sergeant Ashford didn't just fight the VA for medical coverage. He spent his last years working at Pentagon Archives, Records Division. He had access to classified documents going back 40 years. Vance's eyes widened. He wouldn't have. He did. He couldn't stand watching good soldiers get destroyed by the system. So he started making copies, backups, anything that looked like it might be evidence of a cover-up or a betrayal. He stored it all on encrypted drives. Riley's voice dropped. "Including the original after-action report from Operation Inherent Resolve. Syria, March 2018. The room went dead silent. "You're lying," Shane said, but there was hope in his voice now, desperate and fragile. "I'm not. There's a USB drive in my bag, encrypted. The password is my father's service number. On that drive is the original audio recording of General Hayworth ordering the airstrike. Time-stamped, authenticated. Everything you need to prove Colonel Vance gave no such order. Vance's hand was shaking now, not from fear anymore, from something else. Something Riley recognized because she'd felt it herself the day she learned her father had been vindicated, too late. Hope mixed with grief, mixed with rage at the waste of it all. "Why?" Vance asked. "Why would you give that to us?" Riley's voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. "Because honor matters more than orders. Because my father died believing the system failed men like you. Because I know what it's like to be told every single day that you don't belong, that you're not good enough, that you should quit. And I know what it takes to prove them wrong." She looked directly at Vance, then at Boone, then at Shane, meeting each set of eyes in turn. "You didn't quit when they betrayed you. You shouldn't have ended up here, but I understand why you did. And now I'm giving you a way out that doesn't end with you dead or spending life in prison." Vance lowered the knife completely, let it hang at his side. "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing, except your word that when this is over, you'll use that evidence the right way, through proper channels, through the media if you have to. But no more of this." She gestured around the bank. "No more hostages, no more crimes. You be the soldier you're supposed to be. They'll bury it again, they'll find a way. Not if you have the right help, not if people know to look." Riley's voice carried certainty. "I have contacts, journalists, people who care about this. Once that evidence is out, once it's verified, they won't be able to bury it again." Boone spoke up. "How do we know we can trust you?" "You don't. But right now, I'm the only chance you have at getting out of this alive and with any hope of clearing your names. So you have a choice. You can keep this going, wait for the FBI to breach, and probably die in the firefight. Or you can trust that maybe, just maybe, there's one person in this whole mess who actually gives a damn about doing the right thing." Vance stood there, knife in hand, surrounded by the ruins of his plan, and considered his options. Riley could see him working through it. The tactical assessment, the risk calculation, the same process she'd been running since the moment they walked through the door. Finally, he looked at Boone, then at Shane. "Opinions?" Boone nodded slowly. "If she's telling the truth about that drive, it's everything we need, everything we've been fighting for." Shane was harder to read. His jaw worked, grinding teeth, fighting internal battles Riley couldn't see. Eventually, he gave a sharp nod. "I want to see it first, the drive, before we do anything." "Fair enough," Riley said. She moved slowly, telegraphing every motion, and retrieved her bag from the floor. Vance tracked her the entire time, knife ready but not threatening. She unzipped the main compartment and pulled out a small black USB drive about the size of her thumb. She held it up for them to see. "This is it. Everything my father collected. Syria's on here. So are about 15 other cases. Cover-ups, betrayals, men who got burned by the system." She looked at the drive for a moment, and for the first time since this started, her voice carried real emotion. "He died before he could do anything with this, before he could help any of you. But I can, if you let me." Vance reached out, hands steady now, and took the drive. He held it like it was made of glass, like it was holy. "What's the password?" 2738591, his service number. Shane had moved closer, looking at the small device like it might disappear if he blinked. "We verify it first, before we do anything." "No," Riley's voice was firm. "You don't have time. FBI's setting up negotiation protocols right now. In 10 minutes, maybe 15, they're going to call. And when they do, you're going to tell them you're ready to surrender. You're going to tell them you have evidence of Pentagon corruption. You're going to make this a media event, not a standoff. And if the drive is fake, if you're lying, then you'll know in about 6 hours when you're in federal holding and someone checks it. But it's not fake. And I'm not lying." Riley's eyes were hard now, uncompromising. "This is your one shot at redemption. Take it or don't, but make the choice now. The bank's front phone rang. Loud, shrill, breaking the moment. Everyone looked at it. Vance walked slowly to the teller station where the phone sat, picked it up. Yes? Riley couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Vance's face, watched him listen, watched him process. My name is Colonel Garrett Vance, former Delta Force. I'm in command here. Pause. No casualties. I repeat, no casualties. All hostages are unharmed. Another pause longer. I want to make a statement. Before any negotiation, I want you to know why we're here. Riley felt a small flutter of hope. He was doing it. He was making this public. We were betrayed by our own command, framed for crimes we didn't commit, thrown away like garbage after years of service. Vance's voice was getting stronger now, more confident. And we came here today to take back what was stolen from us. Not money, our honor, our truth. Outside, Riley could see movement. More vehicles arriving, news vans. The media was showing up. Good, that was good. Sunlight was the best disinfectant. I have evidence, Vance continued, classified evidence that proves General Raymond Hayworth ordered illegal airstrikes in Syria and blamed ground forces to cover it up. I'm prepared to surrender, but only if that evidence goes public, only if the truth comes out. The person on the other end was clearly trying to interrupt, to take control of the conversation. Vance spoke over them. I don't want lawyers. I don't want deals. I want the truth. And I want every news camera out there to know that's what this is about. He paused, listening, then his eyes found Riley across the room. He nodded, just slightly. There's someone here who helped me understand that honor matters more than revenge. Someone who reminded me what it means to be a soldier. He held Riley's gaze as he spoke into the phone. We're coming out. In exactly 10 minutes. All hostages first, unharmed. Then my men. Then me. And when I come out, I'm going to hand this evidence to the first journalist I see. That's non-negotiable. He hung up before they could respond. Shane looked like he might collapse. We're really doing this? We're really doing this, Vance confirmed. He looked at the USB drive in his hand, then at Riley. Thank you. For this. For all of it, Riley nodded. Thank my father. He's the one who collected it. I will. If there's an afterlife, I'll find him there and thank him personally. Vance managed a small smile. You're a hell of a soldier, Petty Officer Ashford, the kind they should be building statues to. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing what's right. There's a difference. Boone was checking his watch. 10 minutes. We should start preparing the hostages. They spent the next few minutes organizing. Vance explained to the other hostages what was happening, that they'd be released first, unharmed. Some of them cried with relief. The young couple clutched each other. Everett Walsh just nodded, like he'd known all along how this would end. Diane Foster, the teller, approached Riley quietly. Thank you, for whatever you did, for stopping this from getting worse. You're welcome, but you might want to think about a career change. This wasn't your fault, but you're probably going to have questions to answer about the vault access. Diane paled. I didn't know they were going to take hostages. They said it would be quick, just in and out. Riley sighed. You gave them information about the vault? A tiny nod. My husband died last year, veteran. The system failed him too. When Colonel Vance approached me, told me what he was doing, I thought, she couldn't finish. You thought you were helping. I understand, but you need to tell the FBI everything. Cooperate fully. It's your only chance at avoiding serious charges. I will, I promise. At exactly 8 minutes, Vance opened the front door. The sunlight that poured in was blinding after the artificial fluorescence of the bank. Riley could see the assembled forces outside, easily 40 vehicles. Local police, county sheriff, FBI, ATF, probably some alphabet agencies she couldn't identify. All of them with weapons ready. First hostage coming out, Vance shouted. Hands visible, unarmed. Jennifer emerged first, the young wife, holding her hands up high. She walked slowly toward the police line. Officers rushed forward, grabbed her, pulled her to safety. Then David, then Lisa, then Diane, then Grant the security guard, then Everett. Everett paused at the door, looked back at Riley one more time. "You did good, soldier, real good." Then he was gone. Just Riley and the three men left now. "You should go," Vance said to her. "Not yet. I want to make sure this goes how it's supposed to go." Shane had his hands behind his head already, ready to surrender. Boone too. They looked exhausted, hollowed out. 3 years of planning and anger and desperation, all draining away, leaving just tired men who'd made bad choices for understandable reasons. "When we get out there," Riley said, "you're going to be on the ground, fast. They're going to be rough. Don't resist. Don't say anything except that you want the evidence to go to the press. Understand?" All three nodded. "Good. Then let's end this." They walked out together. Riley first, then Shane, then Boone, then Vance. The moment they cleared the door, commands erupted from every direction. "On the ground! Now! Hands behind your head!" Riley dropped smoothly, professionally. The three men followed her lead. Within seconds they were surrounded. Boots on their backs, hands wrenching their arms, zip ties cutting into wrists. Someone grabbed Riley's shoulder, started to pull her up. "Easy with this one," a voice said. "She's military." Another voice, closer to her ear. "Petty Officer Ashford? That's me. Master Chief Kessler is here. He's asking for you." They pulled her up, cut her zip ties. Through the chaos of bodies and vehicles and shouting, she saw Kessler. He stood near one of the FBI command vehicles, arms crossed, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Riley walked to him, somehow steady despite everything. When she reached him, he grabbed her and pulled her into a brief, hard hug. "I knew you'd prove them wrong," he said quietly. "I knew it. Learn from the best, Master Chief." He pulled back, looked at her carefully. "You hurt?" "No, nobody got hurt. That was the mission." "That was the mission," he echoed, something like pride in his voice. Then quieter. "Your father would be proud. What you did with that drive, giving them a way out, that's real courage." Riley's throat tightened, but she kept her composure. "He did the hard part, collecting it, hiding it, knowing he'd never see justice himself. I just finished what he started." Behind them, Vance was being loaded into a federal transport vehicle, but not before he handed the USB drive to a woman with a camera and a press badge. She was already on her phone, calling it in. The story was out there now. Couldn't be buried, couldn't be hidden. Riley watched it happen and felt something release in her chest. Something she'd been carrying since her father died, since she'd found his collection of evidence, since she'd realized the system he died fighting against would keep destroying people unless someone fought back. She'd fought back. Not with violence, with truth. "Come on," Kessler said gently. "Let's get you debriefed. This is going to be a long day." "It already has been," Riley said, but she allowed herself a small smile as they walked toward the FBI command center. But it was worth it. The FBI command center smelled like burnt coffee and nervous sweat. Agent Ross had commandeered the bank manager's office in the building next door, transforming it into a temporary operations hub, complete with laptops, communication equipment, and at least 8 people talking on phones simultaneously. Riley sat in a folding chair facing Ross across a borrowed desk, Kessler standing slightly behind her like a silent sentinel. Ross was younger than she'd expected for an FBI supervisor, maybe 45, with prematurely gray hair and the kind of lean build that came from running every morning, not from gym memberships. His eyes were sharp, assessing, the eyes of someone who'd spent years reading people for lies. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Ross said, tapping a pen against his notepad. "You're an active-duty Navy SEAL. You were in the bank during a robbery. You had multiple opportunities to neutralize the hostage takers using lethal force, and instead you chose to negotiate with them and provide them with classified evidence? The evidence wasn't classified to me, Riley corrected. It was my father's personal property, left to me as inheritance. What's on that drive became mine the moment he died. Evidence of Pentagon misconduct. Evidence that could potentially exonerate a man who just took 7 people hostage at gunpoint. Evidence of the truth. Riley kept her voice level, which is what everyone claims to want until it becomes inconvenient. Ross studied her for a long moment. You realize this is going to cause a shitstorm. I'm counting on it. The Pentagon will deny everything. They'll claim the recordings are fabricated. They'll bury Colonel Vance in legal proceedings until he's too old to care. Maybe, or maybe the public pressure will be too much. Maybe the media won't let it die. Maybe someone in Congress will actually care. Riley leaned forward slightly. But either way, the truth is out there now. Can't put that back in the box. Kessler spoke up for the first time since they'd entered the room. Agent Ross, Petty Officer Ashford prevented a bloodbath today. 7 civilians walked out without a scratch. 3 armed men surrendered peacefully. No shots fired. No federal agents injured storming the building. I don't care what your protocols say about classified information. What she did was the right call. Ross sighed, rubbing his temples. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm saying it's complicated. Naval intelligence is already making noise about the chain of custody on that drive. JAG wants to interview her. Hell, I've got 3 different agencies claiming jurisdiction over various aspects of this mess. Then they can get in line, Kessler said flatly. She's not going anywhere until she's ready. Master Chief. She just spent 90 minutes with a knife to her throat, staying calm while armed men fell apart around her. And then she de-escalated a situation that would have ended with multiple casualties. So yes, we'll cooperate. We'll give statements. We'll do everything by the book, but on our timeline, not yours. Ross looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Kessler's expression made him reconsider. Instead, he turned back to Riley. Walk me through it one more time. From the beginning. When did you first realize something was wrong? Riley had already told this story twice, but she told it again. The 3 men with military bearing, the locked doors, the professional takeover, Vance choosing her as the hostage, her decision to wait, to observe, to look for a non-violent resolution, the revelation about the empty vault, the conversation about Syria, the USB drive. Ross took notes throughout, occasionally asking for clarification on timing or specific details. When she finished, he set down his pen and looked at her with something that might have been respect. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly reckless, he said. I'm a SEAL, Riley replied. Those aren't mutually exclusive. A knock on the door interrupted them. A young agent poked his head in. Sir, the journalists are asking about the USB drive. They want verification of its contents before they run the story. Tell them we're investigating. They're not asking us, sir. They're asking the Pentagon. And apparently the Pentagon just issued a statement calling it fabricated evidence from a disgraced archives clerk who was fired for security violations. Riley's hands clenched into fists before she could stop herself. My father was not disgraced. He retired with full honors. I'm just telling you what they're saying, ma'am. Ross waved the agent away and turned back to Riley. And so it begins. They're going to attack your father's credibility, attack yours. Make this about stolen, classified information instead of what's actually on that drive. Let them try. Riley's voice was cold now. My father has a service record going back 30 years. Commendations, medals, performance reviews. If they want to claim he was some kind of rogue operative stealing files, they'll have to explain why they trusted him with access for 3 decades. They'll say he changed, got bitter, started fabricating evidence to get revenge on a system that denied his medical claims. Then they'll have to explain the timestamps, The authentication codes. The voice analysis on General Hayworth's orders. Riley stood up, unable to sit still anymore. My father was a lot of things, Agent Ross, but he was not a liar, and he was not a fabricator. Everything on that drive is real, authenticated, verified. If the Pentagon wants to challenge it, they can submit it to independent analysis, which is exactly what the journalists are requesting. Ross checked his phone. CNN has already reached out to 3 different audio forensics labs. The Washington Post is filing FOIA requests for the original Syria reports. This is moving fast. Good, Riley thought. Let it move fast. Let it move so fast the Pentagon couldn't keep up with their own spin. Let the truth get ahead of the lies for once. Outside the office, she could hear raised voices, arguments. Someone was angry about something, volume increasing with each exchange. Then the door opened without anyone knocking, and a man in a navy dress uniform strode in, commander's insignia on his collar. Riley didn't recognize him, but from the way Kessler's posture shifted slightly, this was someone important. Petty Officer Ashford, the commander said without preamble. I'm Commander Hayes, Naval Intelligence. You're coming with me. She's in the middle of giving a statement to the FBI, Ross objected. The FBI can wait. This is a matter of national security. Kessler stepped forward. With respect, Commander, Petty Officer Ashford has been through a significant trauma today. What she needs is to explain why she distributed classified materials to civilians and the press. Hayes's voice was sharp, clipped. Materials that could compromise ongoing operations and damage relationships with Allied forces. Riley felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not fear exactly, more like recognition. This was the part where the system tried to protect itself, where the institution closed ranks and made the inconvenient truth go away. The materials I distributed, Riley said carefully, were my personal property, left to me by my father. They contain evidence of criminal misconduct by senior military officials. I had every right to make them public. You had a security clearance. You knew those documents were classified. I knew my father collected evidence of corruption and cover-ups. That doesn't make the evidence itself classified. Truth isn't classified, Commander. Only the Pentagon's embarrassment is. Hayes's jaw tightened. You're coming with me. Now. That's an order. She's not under your command, Kessler said quietly, dangerously quiet. I have authority from Nav Spec War to detain her for questioning regarding potential violations of... Show me the orders. Hayes hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. I don't need to show you anything, Master Chief. This isn't your concern. Riley Ashford has been my concern since the day she walked into BUD/S. She's my student, my responsibility, and you're not taking her anywhere without proper authorization and legal representation present. The 2 men stared at each other. Riley could feel the testosterone levels rising, could see this about to escalate into a full confrontation. She needed to de-escalate before someone said something that couldn't be walked back. Commander Hayes, she said, her voice calm and professional. I'm happy to answer questions about my actions today, but I'm not going anywhere until the FBI completes their debrief. After that, if you have official orders through proper channels, I'll comply. Until then, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Hayes looked like he wanted to argue, but Agent Ross had stood up now too, adding his authority to the mix. The FBI has priority here, Commander. This is an active hostage situation investigation. Your questions can wait. This is a matter of national security. Yes, you said that. Ross's tone was pleasant but unyielding. And I'm sure it is. But my investigation takes precedence. So either you can wait outside, or you can file a formal request through proper channels, or you can take it up with my supervisor. But Petty Officer Ashford stays here until we're done. For a moment, Riley thought Hayes was going to pull rank, cite some regulation, make this into an actual confrontation. But then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his expression changed. The anger drained away, replaced by something closer to resignation. "Fine," he said, reading the message on his phone one more time. His expression shifted from anger to something closer to defeat. SecDef's office just ordered all interference to cease. Apparently, you've got friends in high places now. He looked at Riley directly. This conversation isn't over, petty officer, but it seems I'm not the one who gets to have it. Watch your back. Not everyone at the Pentagon is happy about Hayworth going down. He left, but the warning lingered in the air like smoke. Riley let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Kessler put a hand on her shoulder, just briefly. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Ross sat back down, making a note on his pad. "That's going to be a problem." "I know. They're going to try to bury you, administratively, legally, every way they can think of. Let them try." Riley sat back down too, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the last 2 hours was fading, leaving behind the familiar, heavy fatigue of post-mission crash. "I did the right thing. I know I did." Doing the right thing doesn't always protect you from the consequences. "I know that too." She met his eyes. "But I'm a SEAL. We don't back down just because something's hard." Ross studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "All right, let's finish this debrief. Then I'll personally escort you to your vehicle and make sure nobody else tries to grab you. After that, you go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be harder than today." "How much harder?" Well, the Washington Post just published their first story. The headline is, "Navy SEAL exposes Pentagon cover-up during bank hostage crisis." It's trending #1 on Twitter. CNN wants an interview. Fox News wants an interview. Hell, even the BBC is calling. So yeah, much harder. Riley closed her eyes. This was it. The moment her life changed completely. No more quiet anonymity. No more being just another SEAL. She was going to be the center of a media firestorm, a political football, a symbol that different sides would claim for their own purposes. But somewhere in the federal detention center downtown, Garrett Vance was being processed. And when they ran his fingerprints, checked his records, started building their case, they'd find something interesting. They'd find that the USB drive Riley gave him was genuine, that the evidence was real, that maybe, just maybe, he'd been telling the truth about Syria. That was worth whatever came next. The debrief took another 90 minutes. Ross was thorough, professional, occasionally sympathetic. He asked about her emotional state, whether she needed counseling, if she felt safe. Riley appreciated the concern but waved it off. She'd debrief properly later with the Navy's psychologists, go through the standard post-incident protocols. Right now, she just wanted to go home. When they finally finished, Kessler drove her back to her apartment in his truck. They didn't talk much. What was there to say? They both knew what was coming. The investigations, the interviews, the political pressure, the career implications. "You can still walk this back," Kessler said as he pulled up to her building. "Claim you were under duress, that Vance coerced you into giving him the drive." "I'm not doing that." "I know, but I had to offer." He put the truck in park. "Your father would be proud, you know, what you did today." Riley felt her throat tighten. "You think so?" "I know so. He spent his whole life collecting that evidence because he believed in accountability. In truth, you made sure it mattered, made sure it got out there. That's exactly what he would have wanted. Even if it cost me my career." Kessler turned to look at her fully. "Riley, you stood in the middle of a bank with a knife to your throat and didn't flinch. You de-escalated 3 armed men without firing a shot. You prevented casualties and ended a hostage situation peacefully. If the Navy is stupid enough to punish you for that, for doing the right thing, then the Navy doesn't deserve you. They'll say I violated security protocols, distributed classified information. Then let them prove it was classified. Let them explain in open court why the truth about General Hayward's orders needs to be hidden. Let them try." He smiled slightly. "You're not alone in this. You've got allies. Me. Every SEAL who's watched you prove yourself over and over. Every veteran who's been screwed by the system. Every journalist who wants the real story. They're going to try to bury you, but it's not going to work. Riley wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that doing the right thing would somehow be enough. But she'd seen too many good people destroyed by the system to be naive about it. Get some sleep, Kessler said. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. She nodded and climbed out of the truck. Her apartment felt too quiet when she entered, too empty. The photos of her father stared at her from the bookshelf. She walked over to them, picked up her favorite. Him in his dress blues, younger, healthier, before the cancer took everything. I did it, Dad, she whispered. I finished what you started. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Garrett Vance. They let me make one call. I used it to find your number. I don't know if they'll let me keep this phone, so I'm making it quick. Thank you for everything. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. My honor, my hope. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that. You saved my life today, not just from the FBI, from myself. Riley read it twice, then typed back. You saved your own life, Colonel. By choosing to surrender, by choosing honor, I just showed you the door. You walked through it. She set the phone down and walked to her bedroom. The exhaustion was overwhelming now, crushing. She needed to shower, to eat, to process everything that had happened. But first she just needed to lie down for a minute. She woke up 14 hours later to her phone ringing. Sunlight streamed through the windows, harsh and unforgiving. The caller ID showed Kessler. Yeah, she answered, voice rough from sleep. Turn on the news, any channel. Riley stumbled to her living room and grabbed the remote. CNN appeared first. The headline made her stop breathing. Pentagon confirms authenticity of Syria recordings. General Hayworth placed on administrative leave. She sat down heavily on the couch. They'd done it. They'd actually verified the evidence. The Pentagon had tried to deny it, tried to spin it, but the forensic analysis was too solid, the timestamps too accurate, the voice match too precise. Riley? Kessler's voice from the phone. You still there? I'm here. They're calling for congressional hearings. 3 senators are demanding Vance's case be reviewed. The JAG office just announced they're opening a formal investigation into Hayworth. What about me? A pause. You've got a meeting with NAVSPEC War Command at 1400. They want a full statement. Are they going to charge me? I don't know, but I'll be there with you. And I've already contacted a JAG defense attorney, just in case. Riley closed her eyes. This was it. The consequences Kessler had warned about. The system protecting itself. But when she opened them again and looked at the TV, she saw something else. A press conference. Garrett Vance's attorney, flanked by 2 senators, announcing that they had incontrovertible proof of Pentagon misconduct, demanding accountability, demanding justice. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. This one from a number with a Washington, D.C. area code. Ms. Ashford, this is Senator Patricia Morrison. I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I would very much like to speak with you about your father's work and the evidence you've made public. I believe we can help each other. Please call my office at your earliest convenience. Then another text. And another. Journalists, advocates, veterans' rights organizations, all wanting to talk, all wanting her story. Riley set the phone face down on the couch and stared at the TV. This was the moment, the fork in the road. She could retreat, cooperate with the Navy's damage control, try to salvage her career by staying quiet. Or she could lean in, tell her story, make sure the truth stayed out there, where it couldn't be buried again. Her father's words echoed in her memory, from one of their last conversations when he was still lucid enough to speak clearly. The hardest thing about being a good person isn't doing the right thing once. It's keeping doing it even when it costs you everything, even when everyone tells you to stop, Even when you're tired and scared and alone, that's when character matters. That's when you find out who you really are. Riley picked up her phone and called Kessler back. I'm going to do the interview, she said. CNN, Washington Post, all of them. I'm going to tell them everything. Riley, I know the risks. I know what it might cost me. But if I stay quiet now, everything my father worked for, everything we did yesterday, it all disappears. They'll spin it, bury it, move on. The only way to make sure that doesn't happen is to keep talking, keep pushing, keep making it impossible to ignore. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, but we do it smart. We get you a media advisor. We prepare talking points. We control the narrative instead of letting them control it. Agreed. And Riley, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right call. It's going to be hell, but it's right. She hung up and stood, walking to the window. Outside, Portland went about its morning routine, unaware that one of its residents had just become the center of a national controversy. Unaware that the quiet woman in apartment 3B had spent yesterday preventing a bloodbath and exposing Pentagon corruption. But they'd know soon enough. The whole country would know. Riley showered, dressed in her service khakis, and prepared for the meeting with NAVSPEC War Command. She didn't know what they were going to say, what charges they might bring, what her future in the Navy looked like. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She'd do it all again. Every single part of it. The meeting at NAVSPEC War headquarters was exactly as uncomfortable as she'd expected. 3 captains, a rear admiral, and a JAG officer who looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. They sat on one side of a conference table. Riley and Kessler sat on the other, with Riley's defense attorney, Lieutenant Commander Julia Brennan, between them. The rear admiral spoke first. Petty Officer Ashford, you understand why you're here? Yes, sir. Good, then let's be direct. What you did yesterday created an enormous problem for this command, for naval intelligence, and for the Department of Defense as a whole. Riley kept her expression neutral. With respect, sir, what I did yesterday was prevent casualties and expose criminal misconduct. I understand that creates difficulties, but those difficulties stem from the misconduct, not from my actions. One of the captains leaned forward. You distributed classified materials. I distributed evidence of crimes, Riley interrupted. Evidence that belonged to my father, that he left to me, that documented serious violations of military law and ethics. I had every legal right to make that evidence public. The classification of those documents was designed to protect the Pentagon from embarrassment, not to protect national security. Riley's voice stayed level but firm. General Hayworth ordered illegal airstrikes. He falsified reports. He destroyed the careers of good soldiers to cover his mistakes. That's not classified information. That's criminal activity. The room went silent. The JAG officer typed something on his laptop. The rear admiral studied Riley with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're very certain of yourself, he said finally. I'm certain of the facts, sir. The facts as you understand them. The facts as they exist, as they've now been verified by 3 independent forensic labs, as they've been confirmed by multiple news organizations, as they're about to be investigated by Congress. Riley paused. Sir, I understand that my actions have caused problems, but they were the right actions. And if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't change anything. The admiral exchanged glances with the 3 captains. One of them shook his head slightly. The JAG officer stopped typing as if the decision had already been made. Riley felt Kessler's hand tighten on the back of her chair. This was it, the moment her career ended. The admiral opened a folder, pulled out a document, stared at it for what felt like an eternity. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Just slightly, barely there, but unmistakable. Stand down, petty officer. We're not charging you with anything. Riley blinked. Sir? The admiral opened another folder. At 600 this morning, The Secretary of Defense called the CNO, personally, told him that your actions yesterday prevented what could have been the worst hostage crisis in Pacific Northwest history. The Secretary of Defense's exact words were, "If we punish her for doing the right thing, we're no better than Hayworth." He slid a document across the table, an official commendation already signed. This came from the top, petty officer, the very top. You're not just avoiding charges, you're being held up as an example of what right looks like. Riley stared at the signature. Secretary of Defense. This wasn't NAVSPECWAR covering itself. This was the Pentagon choosing accountability over reputation. For the first time in her career, the system had chosen her over itself. You're not being charged, you're being commended. He nodded to one of the captains who opened a folder and slid it across the table. The Chief of Naval Operations has reviewed the incident. Your actions prevented casualties, resulted in a peaceful resolution to a hostage situation, and exposed serious misconduct that needed to be addressed. You demonstrated exceptional judgment under extreme pressure. Riley stared at the folder, not quite believing what she was hearing. Now that being said, the Admiral continued, you've also become a lightning rod. The media attention alone makes you a security risk. Your ability to operate covertly has been compromised, so we're making some changes to your assignment. Here it comes, Riley thought. The administrative exile, the desk job, the slow, quiet end to her career. Effective immediately, you're being transferred to the Special Warfare Development Group. You'll be working with the training cadre at BUD/S, focusing specifically on integration protocols for female candidates. Riley's head snapped up. Sir, you proved yesterday that women can handle high-stress, tactical situations with the same competence as their male counterparts. We need that expertise in our training programs. You'll be helping us build better selection criteria, better preparation protocols, better support systems. With respect, sir, I'm an operator, not an instructor. You're both, and right now we need the instructor more than we need another operator. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. This isn't a punishment, petty officer. This is recognition. You've become a symbol, whether you wanted to or not. We need to use that. Help us make the teams better. Help us prove that integration can work. Riley looked at Kessler. He gave her a small nod. This was a good outcome, better than good. Yes, sir, she said. I accept the assignment. Good. You'll report to Coronado in 2 weeks. That gives you time to handle the media obligations you've already committed to. The Admiral stood, and everyone else followed. One more thing, petty officer, off the record. Sir, what you did took guts, real guts, the kind we need more of in this Navy. Don't let anyone tell you different. The meeting ended. Riley walked out of the building into bright California sunshine, still processing what had just happened. Not charges, not punishment, a promotion of sorts, a chance to shape the future instead of just surviving the present. Not bad, Kessler said beside her. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot better. You're alive, you're free, you're still in the Navy, and you're going to be training the next generation. That's about as good as it gets when you've just exposed a general for war crimes. Riley had to admit he had a point. Her phone buzzed. CNN, confirming the interview for tomorrow. She answered, set up the details, hung up. Then it buzzed again. And again. The media machine was just getting started. Over the next 6 weeks, Riley gave 17 interviews. She testified before a Senate committee. She met with veterans advocacy groups, with journalists, with lawyers working on Vance's appeal. She became, whether she wanted to or not, the face of military accountability. Garrett Vance's case was reviewed. The charges related to the bank were processed. He pled guilty to kidnapping and armed robbery, accepting a 10-year sentence in exchange for cooperation with the investigation into General Hayworth. But the Syria charges were dropped, expunged from his record. His dishonorable discharge was upgraded to honorable. His pension and benefits were restored. Boone Marcus and Shane Wolf received similar deals, 12 years and 8 years respectively, with credit for cooperation and recommendations for PTSD treatment programs. General Raymond Hayworth was court-martialed. The trial lasted 3 months. The evidence from William Ashford's USB drive was central to the prosecution. Hayworth was convicted of dereliction of duty, filing false reports, and conduct unbecoming an officer. He was sentenced to 5 years in military prison and stripped of his rank and pension. It wasn't enough. Riley knew that. 5 years for destroying lives, for covering up war crimes, for betraying the soldiers under his command. But it was something. It was accountability. It was truth. And sometimes that had to be enough. Diane Foster, the teller who'd provided inside information, received 2 years probation in community service. Her cooperation with investigators had been complete, her remorse genuine. She now volunteered full-time with a veterans advocacy nonprofit, helping families navigate VA claims. In a strange way, she'd found her redemption too. Everett Walsh returned to his quiet life in Portland, but 6 months later, Riley received a letter from him. Inside was a photo. Everett at a VA hospital, volunteering with younger veterans struggling with PTSD. His note was simple. "You reminded me that one person can make a difference. Time I started making one too." She pinned it to her bulletin board at BUD/S, right next to her father's photo. 6 weeks after the bank incident, Riley stood in front of BUD/S Class 382. 18 women among 200 candidates, all of them staring at her with a mixture of awe and nervousness. "My name is Senior Chief Riley Ashford," she said, her voice carrying across the training ground. 3 months ago, I was in a bank with a knife to my throat. The men holding that knife thought I was just another victim. They thought wrong." She paused, letting that sink in. "They thought wrong because I'd been trained, because I'd been tested, because I'd proven myself over and over again in rooms full of people who said I didn't belong." She looked at each of the women in turn. "They'll say that about you too. Every day. From this moment until you either quit or earn your trident. Some of you won't make it. Most of you won't. That's not about gender. It's about standards." Another pause. "But for those of you who do make it, who refuse to quit, even when everything hurts and everyone doubts you, I want you to remember something. You're not here to prove women can do this. You're here to prove you can do this. Individual warriors, earning individual respect." She thought of her father, of Kessler, of Vance and Boone and Shane, of all the people who'd been broken by the system and the few who'd survived it. The world's going to doubt you. Let it. Use that doubt. Turn it into fuel. And when the moment comes, when everything's on the line and no one expects you to succeed, that's when you show them who you really are. In the back of the group, she saw Kessler watching. He caught her eye and nodded once. Approval. Pride. Riley turned back to the class. "Now drop and give me 50. Welcome to BUD/S. Welcome to the hardest thing you'll ever do. Welcome to proving them all wrong." As the candidates hit the sand and started counting, Riley felt something settle in her chest. Purpose. Direction. A future that made sense. She'd stopped a bank robbery, exposed a corrupt general, changed her own career trajectory. But this was the real work. Building the next generation. Making sure they didn't have to fight the same battles she'd fought. Making sure the doubt and discrimination she'd faced became relics of the past instead of promises of the future. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "Senior Chief Ashford. This is Colonel Garrett Vance. They're transferring me to a minimum security facility next week. Better food, more privileges. My lawyer says we have a good shot at early release for good behavior. I'm working on my GED, planning to get a college degree while I'm in here, maybe make something of the time. I wanted you to know that what you did, giving me that evidence, giving me a chance at redemption. It mattered. It still matters. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a criminal, for believing in honor when everyone else had given up on it. Riley typed back slowly. Thank you for choosing surrender over violence, for being the soldier you were supposed to be, even when it was hard. That took courage, real courage. Good luck with your studies, Colonel. The world needs more people like you, people who choose right over easy. She sent it and pocketed her phone. In front of her, Class 382 kept counting. Their voices merged together, a chorus of determination and pain and stubborn refusal to quit. Riley smiled. This was where she belonged. Not in the shadows on some classified mission. Not in a bank with a knife to her throat. Here, training the future, building something that would last longer than any single operation. Her father would have been proud. Master Chief Kessler definitely was. And Riley? For the first time since her father's death, she felt something close to peace. The doubters had been wrong. She'd proven it. And now she'd make sure the next generation could prove it too.